little one. Join us!
When you are walking alone along a mountain path shrouded in deep, swirling mist, have you ever experienced a sudden, inexplicable chill that causes your breath to turn into a thick white cloud? The visibility narrows until the world beyond a few meters seems to dissolve into a void, and the towering cedar trees surrounding you appear to stand as silent, watchful sentinels, possessing a collective consciousness that predates human memory. The damp scent of decaying leaves and moss rises from the earth, filling your lungs with the heavy aroma of a forest that has breathed for centuries in isolation. In such an oppressive, absolute silence, a primal instinct often surfaces within the human psyche, a desperate urge to break the quietude and confirm one's own existence in the face of the overwhelming unknown. You draw a deep breath, the cold air stinging your throat, and release that familiar melodic call that has echoed through the Japanese highlands for generations. Woohoo! You wait, your heart thumping against your ribs in the rhythmic cadence of anticipation. Then, after a few seconds of hollow stillness, the exact same sound returns from the distant, unseen slopes. We have been conditioned from a young age to accept this as a mere physical phenomenon, a simple reflection of sound waves known as an echo or Yamabiko. However, in the liminal space of the deep mountains, that scientific certainty begins to feel dangerously fragile, like a thin veil threatened by a rising wind. Consider for a moment the unsettling possibility that the voice returning to you is not a mechanical vibration of air molecules bouncing off a rock face, but rather a deliberate, sentient mimicry performed by something hidden within the shadows. Perhaps you notice that the tone of the returned voice is a fraction of a shade deeper than your own, carrying a metallic, crystalline coldness that your living throat could never produce. Or perhaps, in a moment of true terror, the voice that travels back across the peaks is not the word you shouted, but a different phrase entirely, uttered with such terrifying clarity that it feels as though the speaker is standing just inches behind your shoulder. This is the true face of the Yamabiko, a creature of folklore and spiritual mystery that transcends the boundaries of simple acoustics. It is said to be a messenger of the mountain gods, or perhaps a manifestation of the mountain's own restless will. As we delve into the nature of this entity through the lenses of folklore, psychology, and fringe science, you may find yourself questioning the true meaning of raising your voice toward the peaks. Are you simply hearing yourself, or are you engaging in a ritualistic exchange with a force that has waited eons for someone to call out? The legends of the Yamabiko, woven into the fabric of regional Japanese history, were never intended to be charming anecdotes for children. They were grim warnings about the fundamental nature of the wilderness. In the rugged terrain of Tottori Prefecture, for instance, the phenomenon of a voice being returned with uncanny speed was attributed to a creature called the Yobukodori, or the calling bird, a manifestation of the mountain itself that was feared as a malicious observer. The villagers understood that to hear a Yamabiko was to be acknowledged by a realm that does not belong to the living. The Wakan Sansai Zue, an encyclopedic masterpiece from the Edo period that sought to categorize both the natural and supernatural worlds, provides a strikingly vivid description of the Yamabiko's physical form. It depicts a small, enigmatic creature resembling a dog, perhaps with the agile limbs of a macaque, inhabiting the deepest, most inaccessible crevices of the mountains, where the sun's rays never penetrate the canopy. Its fur is said to be the color of ancient moss, and its eyes, though animalistic, possess a haunting, human-like sorrow. Other traditions describe it as a child clad in a cloak of withered leaves, or a long-eared monk, who has discarded the world of men to become a vessel for the sounds of the forest. These entities are masters of vocal mimicry, capable of reproducing the subtle tremors of a human voice, with such precision that they can unravel the sanity of a weary traveler, luring them deeper into the labyrinth of the trees. Have you ever truly listened to your own echo with every fiber of your being? When the sound returns, do you verify every inflection and every trailing whisper? Unlike a recording, which often sounds alien to the speaker, the Yamabiko's return often carries an unnerving, intimate quality, as if it is reflecting the very state of your soul. Imagine if, within the fading resonance of your own call, you heard the faint, rhythmic sound of something clicking its tongue, or a soft, melodic chuckle that did not originate from your own lungs. In that instant, the realization dawns that the place where the echo originates is not a mere geographical feature, but a threshold between our world, the Utsushio, and the hidden world of spirits, the Kakurio. The silence that follows such an encounter is never truly empty. It is a heavy, expectant silence, filled with the presence of something that is now aware of your exact location, and the frantic rhythm of your pulse. The primary reason the Yamabiko was whispered about with such dread lies in its impossible speed, and its flawless predatory mimicry. From a purely scientific perspective, sound travels at approximately 340 meters per second, meaning there should always be a logical delay proportional to the distance of the reflecting surface. Yet, in the most harrowing accounts of the Yamabiko, the voice is returned instantaneously, or in some cases, a fraction of a second before the person has even finished speaking. This suggests that the Yamabiko possesses a form of precognition or telepathic sensitivity, sensing the intent and the vibration of the thought, before it is even fully manifested as speech. It is an act of psychological dominance, a way for the mountain to demonstrate that it knows the intruder's mind better than they know it themselves. In certain regions of the Totori Mountains, it was believed that anyone who heard a Yamabiko would inevitably encounter a grave misfortune shortly thereafter. This fear likely stemmed from the idea that one's innermost secrets or forbidden thoughts were being amplified and exposed by the vast natural amphitheater of the peaks. Have you ever been in a silent forest and felt with absolute certainty that someone had whispered your name, only to turn and find nothing but the swaying of the branches? If you had answered that call, you might have inadvertently surrendered your identity to the echoes of the past. In many provincial traditions, the Yamabiko is viewed as a subordinate of the mountain deity, the Yamanokami acting as a gatekeeper or a cosmic sentry. Within the boundaries of sacred groves and forbidden peaks, raising one's voice was considered a profound violation of spiritual etiquette. To shout in such a place is to cast a stone into a perfectly still pond, creating ripples of energy that alert the ancient inhabitants of your intrusion. The Yamabiko's immediate response is not an invitation, but a stern warning you are trespassing in a domain where the laws of man are void. If you should find yourself in a location where an echo should logically occur against a sheer cliff or within a narrow gorge, and yet your voice is met with a flat, suffocating silence, the danger is even greater. Such silence indicates a place of profound spiritual consumption, a site where the energy is so heavily weighted toward the negative that even sound cannot escape, or perhaps a place so cursed that the mountain refuses to even acknowledge your existence. The etymology of the word Yamabiko itself suggests a divine response from the mountain, implying a direct and often judgmental interaction with the spiritual essence of the land. From a scientific standpoint, an echo is the result of sound waves, reflecting off a hard surface and returning to the source. Variables such as air temperature, humidity, wind direction, and the angle of the terrain must align perfectly to produce a clear, recognizable Yamabiko. However, modern acoustic ecology often encounters anomalies that defy these standard models. There are documented cases of ghost echoes occurring in wide-open plains, where no reflecting surfaces exist for miles, or instances where a shout is returned after an impossibly long delay of several minutes, as if the landscape had digested the sound before choosing to release it. Some researchers in the field of parapsychology suggest that certain geological formations, particularly those with high quartz content or specific magnetic anomalies, may act as a form of natural recording media. They propose that the environment can capture the acoustic energy of past events and replay them when triggered by specific atmospheric conditions, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as a stone tape. Yet, if these are merely atmospheric recordings or magnetic hallucinations, why is it that groups of people often hear the exact same anomalous echo simultaneously? The theory of a collective hallucination becomes difficult to maintain when the audio data is consistent across multiple witnesses. When you push the boundaries of logical interpretation, you are left with the lingering shadow of the yokai, a sentient, localized intelligence that resides within the geography itself. This brings us to the distinction between the Yamabiko and the Kodama. While often confused, the Kodama is the spirit of an ancient tree, a more sedentary and peaceful entity that reflects sound as a sign of the forest's vitality. The Yamabiko, by contrast, is more elusive and mercurial, possessing a trickster-like nature that delights in disorientation. While a Kodama might offer a sense of being watched by a protective guardian, the Yamabiko provides the sensation of being hunted by a mimic. In the realm of modern urban legends, the Yamabiko has taken on even more sinister undertones. There is a chilling account of a group of hikers who reached a summit at twilight and began to call out into the darkening valley. Each shout was met with a perfect, crisp echo until the final member of the group cried out. The voice that returned was not his own, but the unmistakable voice of a companion who had met their end in those very mountains years prior. The echo did not say woohoo, it screamed a desperate plea for help, its voice distorted by a grief that seemed to vibrate through the very stones beneath their feet. Terrified, the group fled down the trail, but the air around them remained thick, with the sounds of their own names being called out by voices that should not have existed. This suggests that the Yamabiko may serve as a reservoir for the lost voices of those who have perished in the wilderness, trapping their final moments of agony in a perpetual loop of reflection. Once a sound is swallowed by the mountain, it becomes part of the mountain's predatory repertoire, a lure used to draw the living toward the same tragic conclusion. The possibility also exists that the Yamabiko is a biological entity yet to be classified by modern zoology, a member of the unidentified mysterious animal, or UMA, category. Similarities can be found in the legends of the Himalayan Yeti or the North American Sasquatch, both of which are frequently reported to use complex whistles and vocal mimicry to confuse intruders or communicate over vast distances. It is a highly effective survival strategy by mimicking the sounds of a predator's prey or the calls of a human. An intelligent animal can manipulate its environment with minimal physical effort. Perhaps the Yamabiko of old was not a ghost or a god, but a specialized primate or canine species with a highly developed syrinx or vocal apparatus capable of projecting sound in a way that creates the illusion of an echo. The strange dog-like depictions found in Edo period scrolls might be the only surviving visual records of a creature that has since retreated into the most remote corners of the Japanese wilderness to avoid the encroachment of industrial civilization. Even if the creature is gone, the acoustic signature of its habitat remains, a haunting reminder of a time when the mountains were truly wild and populated by things that could steal your voice. Let us consider another more personal question. If you were to shout into the mountain air and receive a direct answer that was not an echo, how would you respond? Imagine calling out, "Is anyone there?" and hearing a voice from the thicket right beside you whisper, "I have been waiting for you." The mountain is a space where the ethics, logic, and safety of the city are completely stripped away. It is an other world where words carry a physical weight and can act as either a shield or a snare. The Yamabiko forces us to confront the reality of our own speech. We often speak without thinking, throwing words into the world as if they were disposable, but the mountain remembers. It reflects our vanity, our fear, and our arrogance back at us with unwavering fidelity. To hear your own voice reflected is to see a mirror of your soul, and if the reflection is distorted, it may be because the soul itself is fractured. There is a final vital rule regarding the Yamabiko that has been passed down through generations of mountain ascetics and woodsmen. You must never, under any circumstances, engage in a prolonged back and forth with an echo out of mere boredom or mockery. To repeatedly hurl your voice at the mountain is to intentionally disturb the slumber of the entities that dwell within the rock and soil. According to legend, if you successfully provoke a Yamabiko to return your call 7 consecutive times, you risk a grave spiritual consequence. It is said that on the 7th reflection, the mountain will stop echoing your voice and instead take it. You will find yourself unable to utter a single sound, your vocal cords rendered useless, as your voice becomes a permanent part of the mountain's choir. You effectively lose a piece of your essence, becoming a hollow shell while your echo continues to wander the peaks, calling out to other travelers. This loss of self is the ultimate price for failing to respect the boundary between the human world and the divine wilderness. The Yamabiko remains a profound symbol of the awe and terror that nature inspires in the human heart. Even in an age where we believe we have mapped every valley and explained every sound with mathematics, the primal shiver we feel when hearing a voice in the woods tells a different story. It is a warning encoded in our very biology, a remnant of a time when we were not the masters of the earth, but merely guests in a vast, sentient landscape. The yokai, known as the Yamabiko, still waits in the lightless ravines and the fog-drenched passes, patient and attentive. It waits for your next word, your next breath, and your next moment of weakness. The next time you feel the urge to shout into the great expanse of a mountain range, take a moment to consider what might be listening and what might decide to answer. True wisdom lies not in the loudness of our call, but in our ability to listen to the silence that precedes it. We hope this exploration of the Yamabiko has opened a window into the deeper mysteries of the Japanese wilderness. The world is far more complex and layered than our everyday senses suggest. And sometimes, the things we take for granted as simple physics are actually the echoes of an ancient, breathing mystery. If you found this narrative compelling and wish to journey further into the realms of the unexplained and the traditional, we invite you to subscribe and join our community of seekers. By engaging with this content through likes and comments, you help keep these stories alive, ensuring that the voices of the past are not lost to the void. Be sure to activate the notification bell so you can be present for our next descent into the shadows of folklore and the unknown. Until we meet again, walk softly in the high places, and remember that the mountain is always listening.